Hi guys, welcome to Pragmatic Politics. My name's Colby Cons, and this is my first YouTube video. I'm here to just create a channel about political commentary where I can fact check people that put out videos regularly and use misleading or fake information to push their narrative. The first video I'm going to be going over today is the Trump interview that came out on HBO yesterday. And it's an absolute train wreck. Trump definitely exposed himself as a deranged lunatic that has no idea what's going on in the country and clearly doesn't have any idea what to do. And it's pretty spicy. So let's have some fun here.
Okay.
Mr. President, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you taking the time,
Good.
and we appreciate your commitment to answer our questions.
Sure.
Really appreciate that. Over the years, I've heard you talk about your adherence to a philosophy called positive thinking. This is the mantra that if you believe something, if you visualize it, then it will happen.
To an extent, I also think in terms of the downside.
Right.
I've been given a lot of credit for positive thinking, but I also think about downside, because only a fool doesn't.
To what extent do you think that that positive thinking mindset is suitable to handling the worst pandemic that we've seen in a century?
I think you have to have a positive outlook. Otherwise, you would have nothing without a positive outlook. I think we've done an incredible job between the ventilators and stopping very infected people from China coming in, meaning putting the ban on China, which frankly nobody wanted me to do. Practically nobody, because it was very...
What do you mean no one wanted him to do this? Everybody wanted to ban everyone from leaving and entering the country originally so that we didn't spread the virus. It was clear it was a very, very contagious virus. And honestly, it took months for Trump to do anything. In February, we knew about this, and yet nothing happened until March.
Very early in January.
You didn't do shit in January.
Not an easy thing to do. When you put a ban on Europe, that's a big thing. We would have probably lost hundreds of thousands of lives more had I not done that. And all of the experts, every one of them.
We could have avoided hundreds of thousands of lives if you took action earlier.
Not one of them wanted to do it. They thought it was too severe. 3 months later, they're all saying, I'm glad you did it.
The criticism of you that is most prominent is about the communication. Is the public health experts saying that it needs to be based in reality. And they're saying that the wishful thinking and the salesmanship is just not suitable at a time when a pandemic has killed 145,000 Americans. And it's that I understand what you're saying, that people need to hear positive thinking. But, you know, for the past 5 months, it's been the virus is totally under control, and the cases have been going up and the deaths have been going up.
Look.
But you've been saying it's under control.
Nobody knew what this thing was all about. This has never happened before. 1917, but it was a totally different, it was a flu in that case, okay? But other than 1917, there's never been anything like this. And by the way, if you watch the fake news on television, they don't even talk about it. But you know, there are 188 other countries right now that are suffering, some proportionately far greater than we are, okay?
Yes, but we're concerned about our country. We're concerned about America doing terribly. I don't care if another country is doing awful, you know. We can't really affect their policies. We can do our policies, protect our citizens, and you're failing to do that.
Okay, as bad as we
Very
are,
few will.
some proportionately greater than we are. Right now.
And we're the
Spain
worst.
is having a
Up
big
there,
spike,
top
and
10
there are
worst.
Tremendous problems in the world. You look at Moscow. Look at what's going on with Moscow. Look at Brazil. Look at these countries.
We're worse than Brazil.
This was sent to us by China, one way or the other.
It was not sent by China. It originated in China, but it wasn't sent from there.
And we're never going to forget it. Believe me, we're never going to forget it. And we were beating China at every single point. We were beating them on trade. We were making progress like nobody's ever made progress. They had, before the pandemic, they had the worst year, Jonathan, that they've had in 67 years. You know that, with the tariffs and everything else I did. We were taking in billions of dollars. I was giving some of it to the farmers. The farmers were doing well because they were targeting the farmers. I was targeting China. We were doing good. Then all of a sudden the game changed and I had to close it down. I closed down the greatest economy ever in history. And then I closed it down. and now we're opening it. And we saved, by the way, by closing it down, we saved millions of lives. If we would have gone to herd, and we knew very little about the disease, if we would have gone herd, we would have lost millions of people, millions of people. One person's too much. We're at 140,000 people. One person is too much. We're at 140. We would have lost millions of people. And those people that really understand it, they really understand it, they said it's incredible the job that we've done. And
We've done a terrible job. We're one of the worst countries in the world at containing this virus. Literally, like America, the greatest Western country in the world, richest, most powerful country, is failing to protect its own citizens from a virus.
And again, I bring it up.
Who says that?
The banning China from coming in.
But it was already in here by
What's
the time.
that?
It was already here.
Yeah,
By the time
all
you
right.
found China, it
It was
came in
there,
through
but
Europe.
nobody knew the extent. Nobody knew how contagious
I'm
it
not.
was.
But the
You
question
know
is,
that?
Mr. President,
Maybe China knew.
by June, we knew things were bad. And you know, the last time I was with you was the day before your Tulsa rally in the Oval, and you know, you were saying big, huge crowd. It was indoors.
By the way,
These people, they
it
listen
was
to
a
you.
big, excuse me, John.
Yeah.
We had a 19,000 seat stadium. First of all, we had 12,000 people, not 6,000, which you reported and other people reported. But
Of course, he's always got to inflate the numbers of whatever rally, inauguration he's ever been at. It's the biggest rally of all time, the Tulsa rally.
you couldn't even get in. It was like,
In the middle of a pandemic, let's have a rally, which, by the way, Herman Cain attended without a mask and is now dead. So, you know, that rally went pretty well.
like an armed camp.
Why would you
because
have
they
wanted
had
that?
120 Black Lives Matter people.
I understand, but why
there.
would you have wanted a
And
huge
Tulsa,
crowd in the
excuse me, wait. And Tulsa, well, because that area was a very good area at the time. It was an area that was
Cases
pretty
were
much
stopped.
over. After a month later, it started going up. That's a month later.
way.
But Tulsa was a very good. Oklahoma was doing very well as a state. It was almost free. It spiked
Almost free.
a month
That's 'cause no
later,
one was
month and a half,
there
2
yet.
months later, but
Now they're
it
getting
was a good
ruined.
area. We had a
Ruined by the
tremendous
virus.
crowd. We had tremendous response. You
Tremendous
couldn't even-
crowd.
It was like an armed camp.
Right in the middle of a
You
pandemic.
couldn't even get through. You couldn't get anybody in.
But I'm
we
talking
had
about the
12,000 people. It was incorrectly reported. The other thing we had that nobody wants to talk about, so Fox broadcast it. It was the highest rating in the history of Fox television, Saturday night. It was the highest rating.
Mr.
My
President.
speech, well, wait a minute, you're saying something.
Yeah.
That speech was the highest rated speech in the history of Fox television on Saturday night. And nobody says that.
I think you misunderstand me. I'm not criticizing your ability to draw a crowd. Are you
Well,
kidding me?
I'm
I've
just
covered you
saying
for
this.
5 years. You draw massive
I'm just
crowds, you
saying
get huge
this.
ratings. I'm asking about the
At
public
time,
health.
and I
In this speech, you shouldn't be doing this in a time where you can't be drawing massive crowds. It's so dumb. Like, just don't host massive rallies. It's that simple. You're putting negative press on yourself, Trump. You're asking to be criticized by doing this, and you're risking people's lives because idiots are going to show up to these rallies without masks, thinking it's okay because their president says it's okay.
And I canceled another one. I had to cancel it. We We're
Right.
going to have a great crowd in
You should have
New
canceled them
Hampshire,
all.
And I canceled it for the same reason.
But here's the question. You know, I've covered you for a long time. I've gone to your rallies. I've talked to your people. They love you. They listen to you. They listen to every word you say. They hang on your every word. They don't listen to me or the media or Fauci. They think we're fake news. They want to get their advice from you. And so when they hear you say everything's under control, don't worry about wearing masks, I mean, these are people, many of them are older people,
What's
Mr.
your
President.
definition of control? Yeah. Under the
It's giving them a false
circumstances
sense of
right
security.
now, I think it's under control. I'll tell you what.
How? 1,000 Americans are dying a day.
They are dying. That's true. And it is what it is. But that's
What? 1,000 people are dying a day, and it is what it is. You know, that's life. It is what it is. This man is crazy. Dude. He does not care about the value of each person's life in our country. I'm glad this reporter is having a strong pushback against him. Most people don't do that.
doesn't mean we aren't doing everything we can. It's under control as much as you can control it. This is a horrible plague that beset us.
You really think this is as much as we can control?
Well,
1,000
I'll tell
deaths
you,
a day?
I'd like to know if somebody, first of all, we have done a great job. We've gotten the governors everything they needed. They didn't do their job. Many of them didn't, and some of them did. Someday we'll sit down, we'll talk about the successful.
By the way, he did not get every governor what they needed. If you look, a report just came out that Jared Kushner withheld aid from the states because the blue states were getting hit hardest for political reasons. So here's the article that I was looking for. Jared Kushner's coronavirus team shied away from a national strategy, believing that the virus was hitting Democratic states hardest and they could blame the governors for it. So purposely they shied away from a federal plan because they knew the blue states were getting hit harder by the virus, and they could blame Democrats for it. And so just shows how well established our government is, how much they care about our citizens. As long as it isn't affecting Republicans, they don't give a shit. It's that simple. Most Democrat states have large cities with tightly packed people, so it's easier for it to spread. And he purposely withheld aid to make it seem like the Democratic governors were doing a poor job compared to Republican governors. I'm going to post the link in the description.
Ones, the good ones, look at that smile. The good ones and the bad. We had good and bad. And we had a lot in the middle. But we had some incredible governors. I could tell you right now who the great ones are.
Tell us.
And who the not so great ones are. But the governors do it. We gave them massive amounts of material.
Mr. President, you changed your message this week in terms of you cancelled the Jacksonville Convention. You said wear a mask. You're saying, that it's going to get worse before it gets better. It's not something you like to say. I know you said that. The big question...
Not get worse like the original flow. You understand that. But
I hope not. It's 1,000.
Now if you look, Arizona's going down.
If I can just finish my question.
Texas is going down and Florida's going down.
The question is, are you going to, even some of your own aides wonder whether you would stick to that message until election day, whether in a week or two you won't say, right, we've got to reopen again, we can't do this stuff anymore, that you'll get bored of talking about the virus and go back to that sort of cheerleading?
I never get bored of talking about this. It's too big a thing. And again,
so will you stick to that message?
It could have been stopped by China. It should have been stopped by China, and it wasn't.
But now it's here.
We have
you're the
it
president.
here. And I think I'm
You're
very consistent. No, this is a very serious thing. Do you think we have 140,000 people at this moment? This is a very, very serious situation.
But it is what it is.
What you have to do is handle it the best it can be handled. And again, I'm working with the governors. I got them tremendous amounts of equipment that they would have never gotten. Jonathan, they wouldn't have equipment now if I didn't get it.
When can you commit, by what date, that every American will have access to the same day testing that you get here in the White House?
Well, we have great testing. We're doing, and
by
many
what
other
date?
people do. Let me explain the testing. We have tested more people than any other country, than all of Europe put together times 2. We have tested more people than anybody ever thought of.
We've tested twice as much as all of Europe. Let's see here. So these are the tests. 28 million, I guess, here. Might be right, actually. Let's see. 63 million. All of Europe has about, let's see, 40. I mean, no, we've tested about all the same as Europe. 28 plus 12, 40, 48, 54, 60, 64, 67. So, yeah, I mean, we've tested less than Europe total. So he's just, blowing numbers up like usual.
India has 1.4 billion people. They've done 11 million tests. We've done 55. It'll be close to 60 million tests. And, there are those that say...
That's good.
You can test too much. You do know that.
Who says that?
Oh, just
exactly.
read manuals.
Who says that? How can you test too much? We're trying to track and contain and eliminate a deadly, contagious virus. You can't test too much. It's a...
Read the books.
Manuals?
Read the
What
books.
manuals?
Read the books.
What books?
What
I like
testing
this
does.
reporter.
Wait a minute, John. Let me explain. What testing does, it shows cases. It shows where there may be cases. Other countries test, you know when they test? They test when somebody's sick. That's when they test. And I'm not saying they're right or wrong.
That's when we
Nobody's
test.
done it like we've done it.
We test
We've
when
gotten
someone's sick.
absolutely no credit for it. But we've come up with so many different tests. The only thing that we have now is some people have to wait longer than we'd like them to.
It's a big problem.
We want point to point. We want to have a 5-minute
It
to
is.
15-minute
It is a big problem.
test.
When do you think?
And like many others,
Every
and from what
American.
I understand, we're close to 50% where it's point-to-point test. We are making thousands of instruments, thousands of tests right now, tens of thousands that can be distributed to various parts of the country. But you have to understand, and we've even sent some of them to other countries where they had a big problem. Jonathan, almost 50%, in fact, I think the number might be over, is immediate testing. The other's tough. You take a test, you have to send it to a laboratory. Let's say that takes a day. Let's say
Right.
it's a day.
It's difficult.
You know, so it's 3 or 4 or
understand.
5 days. There's nothing you do about that.
But when do you think we'll have it for
I
everyone?
think that you
What
will
day?
have that relatively soon. I mean, again,
What does that mean?
you already have half.
Yeah.
I would much rather get back to you because I don't
Okay.
want to have you
That's
right
fine.
in 1 month.
Half?
Make it,
What do you
I
mean
missed it
half?
by a
Yeah,
day
I
and
get
it's
it.
a headline.
Mr.
We need
President,
to
I
be
wanna talk about
testing
the
everyone
federal
pretty
intervention
much,
in
whenever they
Excuse me,
want
I
it.
would say about
Yeah.
testing, because we test so much, we show cases. So we show many, many cases. We show tremendous number of, I know you're smiling when I say that,
No,
but I'm
but come on.
telling
I
you.
mean, I've heard you say this,
Other
but
countries don't test like we do,
you know-
so they don't show cases.
just a couple of points on that. I wasn't going to continue on the testing, but you said it. So we're testing so much because it's spread so far in America.
We're
And
testing
when you
so much because we had the ability to test.
Okay,
Because we
but-
came up with
but
tests.
South Korea-
Jonathan, we didn't even have a test. When I took over, we didn't even have a test. Now,
What? Of course not. It's a brand new disease. How could we have a test when he took over? Oh no, Obama. He didn't create a test for coronavirus. 4 years ago before it ever existed. It's Obama's fault. It's your job, Trump. A new disease happened in your term as president. Of course, there was no fucking test already.
in all fairness,
why would you
there
have a
was
test?
no
The
test
virus
for
didn't
this.
exist. How would you have a
I was
test?
going to say, there was no test for this new. We didn't have a test because there was no test.
course.
In a very short order, we got one test, we got another test.
It
we
was
got
broken,
another-
the first
Many of those tests are now obsolete because we've, it's called science, and all of a sudden something's better. But because we tested so many people, 55, 60 million people very soon, we get cases. You test, some kid has even just a little runny nose, it's a case. And then you report many cases. So we look like we have more cases than massive countries like China, which, by the way, doesn't report, as you know.
Well, I don't put any stock in China's figures.
The
Yeah.
point is, because we are so much better at testing than any other country in the world, we show more cases.
Not that you can really trust our data anymore, because our president, Trump here, has forbidden all hospitals from sending coronavirus data to the CDC and allowing it to be publicly dispersed. It now goes to a private organization run by him, and he gets to decide, who he tells about the information. So, it's no coincidence that in the last couple of weeks since we spiked up in the South, that cases have plateaued ever since hospitals were not allowed to send the data to the CDC. Now all of a sudden, we're looking good now that Trump controls all the information. Just a little conspiracy.
The figure I look at is death. And death is going up now.
Okay,
And it's 1,000
And it's
a
true.
day.
If you look at
1,000
death,
deaths
Yeah,
a
going up
day.
again.
let's look.
Daily death.
Take a look at some of these charts.
I'd love to.
We're going to look.
Let's look.
And if you look at death,
Yeah. It's started to go up
here's
again.
one. Well, right here, the United States is lowest in numerous categories. We're lower than the world.
Lower than
We're
the
lower
world.
than
Lower than the world? What do you mean? We're 4% of the entire world. We better be lower than the rest of the world. What kind of statement is that?
What is that?
Here's case
What, his
death.
sheets of paper are just
Oh, you're doing death as a proportion of cases. I'm
just 5 massive graphs, fully size. You know, the whole paper is the graph, and that's it. That's all he brought with him.
talking about death as a proportion of population. That's where the US is really bad.
Well,
Much worse than South Korea, Germany, etc.
you can't do that. You have
Why
to go.
can't I do that?
You have to go by.
What do you mean he can't do that? He can't use the statistic that we have more deaths per population than any other country, pretty much?
You have to go by where. Look, here is the United States. You have to go by the cases. The cases.
Why
of
not
death.
as a proportion of
When we
population?
have somebody, what it says is when you have some.
The cases are ahead of deaths by 2 weeks. It takes 2 weeks for symptoms to even show up on some people. You can't track it, deaths relative to cases, because cases are increasing and deaths lag behind by 2 weeks. So that's why our deaths are spiking so much later than when the cases are spiking. This guy's an idiot. He has no idea how this virus works still, and he's the president of our country.
Somebody that has where there's a case.
Oh, okay.
The people that live from those cases.
It's surely a relevant statistic to say if the US has X population and X percentage of death of that population versus
because you
South
have to
Korea.
go by the cases.
Well, look at South Korea, for example. 51 million population, 300 deaths. It's like, it's crazy
you don't
compared to
know
other
that.
countries. I do. It's on
You
the.
don't know that.
You think they're faking their statistics, South Korea?
I
An
won't
advanced
get into
country?
that because I have a very
What?
good relation-
He thinks South Korea is just lying? They're our allies. Oh my God, dude, this guy's ridiculous.
relationship with the country, but you don't know.
We're the
that.
ones
They
lying
have
now.
spikes. Look, here's
Germany
one,
low,
here's
9,000.
Here's one right here, United States. You take
Anyway.
the number of cases.
Okay.
Now look, we're last, meaning we're first.
Last, I don't know
We
what
have
we're
the
first
best.
in. As a what?
Take a look
Okay.
again. It's
I just-
cases,
Okay.
and we have cases because
mean,
of the testing. Wait,
1,000 Americans are dying a day, but I understand on cases it's different.
no, but you're not reporting it correctly, Jonathan.
I think I am, but
If you take a look at this other chart, look, this is our testing, I believe. This is the testing, yeah.
yeah, we do more tests.
No, wait a minute. Well, don't we get credit for that? And because we do more
Yes,
tests,
it's
we have
good
more cases.
we're doing
In other words,
tests,
we
but-
test more. We have. Now take a look.
You have more
The top
cases
one, that's a
because
good
the
thing, not a bad
virus
thing.
is spreading.
Top, Jonathan.
If hospital rates were going down and deaths were going down, I'd say terrific. You deserve to be praised for
Well, they
testing,
don't
but they're
even-
all going
you
up.
know, they very rarely talk.
60,000 Americans are in
If
hospital.
you watch the
1,000
news
dying
or
a
read the
day.
papers, they usually talk about new cases, new cases, new cases.
I'm talking about death.
Well, you look at
going
death.
up.
Death is way down from where it was.
It's 1,000 a
It's
day.
going up.
It was 2,500. It went down to 500. Now it's going up
Death,
again.
excuse me, where it was is much higher than where it is right now.
Went down, then it went up
spiked,
again.
But now it's going down again. It's
going
going
up.
down in Arizona.
it's not
going
going
down.
down.
In Florida,
Nationally,
it's
it's
going
going
down in Texas. Take a look at this.
It's
These
not
are the
going down in
tests.
It's going
Florida.
down in Florida?
Yeah, it's going. It leveled out and it's going down. That's my report as of yesterday.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mr. President, if I could change subject.
It is going down in Arizona.
Arizona
going
it
down
is.
in
Arizona
Texas.
it is. Texas
And it
has
is
big
spiked,
problems.
And it spiked and it's now going down in Florida. It's evened out and going down in Florida.
I'll have to see those figures.
But you have to look at this. This is the number of tests compared
I
to the
don't
rest
deny
of the
your
world.
figures. You've done more tests by far than the rest of
Right.
them. I don't
and
deny that.
because we've done more tests, we have more cases.
It's not a direct correlation.
Mr. President, different
We have
subject.
more
It's been widely
cases
reported that the US has intelligence
because the
indicating that
virus
Russia
is
paid
spreading.
bounties or offered to pay bounties to Taliban fighters to kill American soldiers. You had a phone call with Vladimir Putin on July 23rd. Did you bring up this issue?
No, that was a phone call to discuss other things, and frankly, that's an issue that many people said was fake news.
Who said
That
it was
a
fake
false-
news?
I think a lot of people, if you look at some of the wonderful folks from the Bush administration, some of them, not any friends of mine, were saying that it's a fake issue. But a lot of people said it's a fake issue.
There was
Well,
dispute
we had a
within the
call,
intelligence.
talking about
It's not a fake issue. I mean, every intelligence agency has come out and reported this to be true. Russia paid Taliban to kill Americans. It's that simple. Don't you think you should bring that up to Russia since you're on the phone with Putin all the time?
nuclear proliferation, which is a very big subject, where they would like to do something and so would I. We discussed numerous things. We did not discuss that, no.
And you've never discussed it with him.
I have never discussed it with them, no. I would. I'd have no problem with it.
But you don't
But,
believe
you know,
the
it
intelligence.
never
It's because
got
you
to
don't believe the intelligence. That's why.
Everything, you know, it's interesting. Nobody ever brings up China. They always bring Russia,
What is-
Russia.
What does China have to do with Russia paying the Taliban to kill American soldiers? What? This is a huge pivot. He has no answer for this, so he's pivoting hard.
If we can do something with Russia in terms of nuclear proliferation, which is a very big problem, bigger problem than global warming, a much bigger problem than global warming in terms of the real world, that would be a great thing. But it never reached my desk. You know why? Because they
You don't read the things that come to your desk.
didn't think it was intelligence. They didn't think it was real.
It was in
They
your
didn't
written
think-
brief, though,
They
apparently.
didn't think it was worthy of. I wouldn't mind if it reached my desk. I would have done something about it. It never reached my desk because
Do you read your written brief?
I do. I
Do you?
read a lot.
Really?
You know, I read a lot. They like to say I don't read. I read a lot.
Your daily
I
intelligence
comprehend
brief?
extraordinarily well. Probably better than anybody that you've interviewed in a long time.
I comprehend extraordinarily well. Better than anyone you've ever interviewed in the history of all interviews. I comprehend the best, the greatest comprehender of all time. What the hell? This guy's crazy.
I read a lot. I spend a lot of time at meetings. Usually it's once a day or at least 2 or 3 times a week intelligence.
Because this was
meetings,
apparently
talking
in your
about
written
India,
brief.
talking about with the problems with China, talking about so many different elements of the world. The world is a very angry place. If you look all over the world, we call up, I see 22 soldiers were killed in India with China fighting over the border. It's been raging for many, many decades. And they've been fighting and back and forth. I have so many briefings on so many different countries, but this one didn't reach my desk.
The reason I say this is
All reports say otherwise. Multiple people have said it's been in multiple briefings that have reached Donald Trump that he chose not to read. And he actually denied the existence of it at first, and then it came out that it's true, and he's saying he never got the briefing. Anyways, he clearly does not give a shit that Russia is paying the Taliban to kill American soldiers.
even if you don't believe this particular piece of intelligence, and there is dispute, no doubt, there is dispute in the intelligence community about it, your former, John Nicholson, former head of forces in Afghanistan, said, and this is when he was working for you, that Russia is supplying weapons to the Taliban. Isn't that enough to challenge Putin over the killings of US soldiers?
Well, we supplied weapons when they were fighting Russia too. You know, when they were fighting.
He is right on that. One of the few good things about Trump is he'll just let things like that slip out. Where I don't think if you're president, you're supposed to be admitting that we supplied weapons to the Taliban in the past, but we did. So I give Trump's prop for just letting us know that we're not the good guys either.
When the Taliban went in Afghanistan.
It's a different era.
Well, it's a different. I'm just saying, yes.
But does that? How does that
I'm
affect?
just saying we did that too.
But how does that?
I don't know. I didn't ask Nicholson about that. He was there for a long time. Didn't have great success because he was there before me, and then ultimately I made a change.
But you surely heard that, right? I mean, it's well known in the intelligence community that they're arming the Taliban, Russia.
I don't know. When you say arming, is
Supplying
the Taliban
weapons.
paying or they?
Russia is supplying weapons and money to the Taliban.
I like this
I
reporter.
have heard that, but it's never it's never reached my desk.
I mean, he said it on the
You've
record
heard
when
it,
he was-
but you've never
Hey,
reached
Russia
your desk.
doesn't want anything to do with Afghanistan. Let me just
Only
take on
written
Russia.
communication
Russia
works nowadays
used to
for
be a thing
you,
called
Trump.
the Soviet Union. Because of Afghanistan, they went bankrupt. They became Russia, just so you do understand, okay? The last thing that Russia wants to do is get too much involved with Afghanistan. They tried that once. It didn't work out too well.
Last question on this subject.
And by the way, we're largely out of Afghanistan, as you probably know.
Well, wanted to ask you about that. The US troop level in Afghanistan right now is roughly the same as it was when
No,
you...
you're wrong. No.
Mr. President, I'm sorry. We have to do...
Okay, are you ready?
No,
We'll be down in a very short... It's already...
Well, that's a different question.
Trump doesn't like getting
We'll
fact
be
checked
down in
here.
a very short period of time to 8,000. Then we're going to be down to 4,000. We're negotiating right now. We've been there for 19 years.
No, I know.
19 years.
But if you just let me finish my
We'll
question.
be getting out.
I understand. Look, when you came in, it was 8,800. You boosted to 14,000, and now you're back down to 8,500.
We're now...
My question to
we'll be
you-
at 4,000. I'll give
When?
you the exact... Very soon. Very soon.
What will
Always
be the
very
number?
soon.
Very soon?
No,
4,000?
no
soon.
time
Like how soon?
promised,
I
no
don't wanna tell you
date.
that. I don't want to tell
It's
you
big
that.
news.
What is that? It's
going down to 4,000, isn't it?
No, I've always said...
Well, what about election day?
We
Here,
will
Trump
get
leaking
largely
information
out.
he's
On
not
election
supposed
day, how
to.
many American troops will be in Afghanistan?
Probably anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000.
That's almost as many as when you came into office.
No, it's not.
8,000?
We had much more. We had a lot of people over there, too.
8,800.
A lot of people.
Troops.
And we did a good job. We wiped out ISIS.
Have you thought about going
ISIS
back
is
to
gone, guys. If you didn't hear, ISIS completely wiped out. Does not exist anymore.
We took out in Syria, we took out ISIS. We 100% of the caliphate. When I took over Obama, it was totally rampant. ISIS was all over the place. We took them out, we captured them, we killed them. 100%, not 99%. I want to get out at 99.
Right.
Everyone said, oh, please,
Every ISIS member is exterminated. 100%.
would you stay? I stayed. 99% was good, but 100% of the caliphate. We took out Soleimani. We took out al-Baghdadi. We took out people that nobody thought possible. Al-Baghdadi was the biggest terrorist of them all. They couldn't find him. I took him out. Soleimani, even bigger. I took him out. I've done things that no other president's done. None, I mean, fortunately, not too many. They should have never been in the Middle East. The decision to go to the Middle East and get into the Middle East was the single biggest mistake made in the history of our country. That's my opinion.
Yeah, not slavery or anything else. It was going to the Middle East was the biggest mistake the America's ever had. But, I mean, it might be argued, but I don't know if it's that closely. We got Vietnam. We have a bunch of other things that were terrible mistakes. Electing Donald Trump, that's probably the biggest mistake.
Told Fox News recently that you couldn't say whether you'd accept the results of the 2020 election. What does that actually look like as the sitting president? I mean, it's unprecedented. What would that actually look
Hillary
like?
Clinton never accepted him.
She
I mean,
conceded
went
on.
totally-
She conceded
still
on.
doesn't accept him, and she got
That's the
beaten
important
very
point.
easily.
That's the important point. She conceded on election night. Now she grumbled about it and said all sorts of things.
Grumbled? She
Okay,
wrote books
fine.
about it.
She wrote books.
Don't use the word grumbled.
Fine, but
She wrote books about it.
That's fine. But I'm
And
just.
she got beaten
I
easily.
get it. I get it.
306 to 2.
No one is arguing that you beat her in the Electoral College vote, Trump, ever. No one ever argued that. At all. Except, maybe Hillary grumbled about it. Okay? But she conceded the night of the election and admitted that she lost and was stepping out of the race. Which she will never do, probably.
223.
I'm
That's
not
a lot.
disputing you beat Hillary Clinton.
That's a lot.
Listen, what I'm asking is you'll be the sitting president in the White House. What does that look like? Not
I'll
accepting.
tell you what it looks like.
Are you litigating?
Let me tell you what it looks like.
Okay.
So we have a new phenomena. It's called mail-in voting, where you send where a governor.
It's been here since the
it's
Civil
new
War.
In terms of the kind of
It's so new,
millions
brand
and
new.
Millions of ballots. They've never.
It'll
done
be
anything like
bigger this year because of the pandemic.
Bigger, not bigger, massively bigger.
Yeah, because of the
So they're
pandemic.
going to send tens of millions of ballots to California, all over the place. Who's going to get them? I have a friend lives in Westchester County.
They send applications, not that.
His son passed away. He had a beautiful, wonderful son, young man, passed away 7 years ago. He called me. He said, "I just got a ballot
Probably an
for my
application.
son Robert."
Yeah, okay. He got an, probably like the reporter saying, an application. But there's nothing you can do with that because if you fill that out and submit it, that's illegal. You will go to jail for voter fraud. Your friend got an application for his dead relative. It is still illegal to fill that out and send it in.
He died 7 years ago. Somebody got a ballot for a dog. Somebody got a ballot for something else. You got millions of ballots going. Nobody even knows where they're going.
You have to apply to get the ballot to be sent to you. What do you mean no one knows where they're going?
You look at some of the corruption having to do with universal mail-in voting.
Do you know how hard, how ridiculous it would be to have fraud, like a foreign interference in our mail-in voting? First of all, every single county's ballot is different because there's local people you vote for in the election. Every single county in the entire United States ballot is different. Then you would have to, so you'd have to create, millions of these fake ballots, go to these respective counties, and somehow find people's names who are not going to vote twice, because if it comes in twice, it's clearly flagged. So you have to find out who's not going to vote, somehow in each county, use their name, and mail them from within that county. So Russia is going to have somehow send people overseas, find out these secret ballots that, they'd have to bribe an election official or work with the full election department to do this, because how are they going to find out the ballots? Then they'd have to mail them from within that county. Otherwise, the postage doesn't make sense. Why is someone from Russia mailing an envelope to vote? It doesn't make sense. They'd have to mail it from within our country. It's ridiculous. You'd have to have an insane amount of working with the election department to commit this fraud. There's been multiple investigations done into election fraud, including Trump when he won. Even though he won, he sent in the FBI to investigate whether it was fraud. And there's zero evidence. Zero. There's never been voter fraud with mail-in ballots. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous that Republicans are pushing this premise when it's impossible to happen. It's crazy.
Absentee voting is okay. You have to apply. You have to go through a process.
You have to apply for mail-in.
Absentee
It's the
voting
same
is
thing.
good. Look,
Let's do concrete. Let's do concrete.
Jonathan, they're sending out
Applications.
governors
Download them.
millions of ballots.
No, they're not.
There
It's
is-
applications. You can get
There
them off
It's
is
true.
no
I got
way
an
you can
application
go
in the mail
through
already.
a
You don't
mail-in
just get
vote
the ballot.
without massive cheating.
I honestly don't understand this topic with
Go
you.
ahead.
The Republican Party has an extremely well-funded vote-by-mail program. Your campaign puts out emails telling people to vote by mail. Your daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, she did robocalls in California saying it's safe and secure, mail-in voting.
Let me tell you.
The Republican
we have
won.
no choice.
That was an all-mail-in race.
Let me tell you. You ready?
Yeah.
We have no choice because right now we have many court cases that we're waiting. We have one filed in Western Pennsylvania. We have many court cases where we're trying to end it. We went through World War I, you went to the polls, you voted. We went through World War II, you went to the polls, you
You've had
voted.
mail-in voting
and
since
now
the Civil
because
War.
of the China virus, we're supposed to stay home, send millions of ballots all over the country, millions and millions. You could have a case where this election won't be decided on the evening of November 3rd.
Absolutely.
This election could
What's
be
wrong with that?
decided 2 months later.
It won't be 2 months, but what's wrong with the proper
It could
mailing
be
count?
decided many months later.
Have you discussed
You know why?
It's not going to
Because
be.
lots of things will happen during that period of time.
There's a coronavirus, a virus that has killed 140,000 plus Americans. And you want people to not be able to vote safely from their homes, Trump. People are not going to go out and vote if it's dangerous. That's why the Republican Party don't want people to vote. It's that simple. The less voters there are, the more likely they're going to win. The mail-in voting is the safest way for people to vote during this pandemic, and it's the most convenient way. Other countries do mail-in voting every single year. It's ridiculous. It's pretty much impossible to commit voter fraud with this. I don't know why the Republicans press on this issue.
Especially when you have tight margins. Lots of things can happen. There's never been anything like this when you try. Now, of course, right now we have to live with it, but we're challenging it in many courts,
You're
as
gonna
you know,
litigate.
all over the country.
Mr. President, the other day a reporter asked you about Ghislaine Maxwell. You said, quote, I just wish her
bringing
well,
this up.
frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, but I wish her well, whatever it is. Mr. President, Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested on allegations of child sex trafficking. Why would you wish such a
Well, first
person
of all,
well?
I don't know that, but I do know that
She has. She's been arrested for that. You know
her
that.
friend or boyfriend
What do you mean you don't know? This is one of the biggest cases of all time. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't know. I don't know anything about him.
Epstein.
was either killed or committed suicide in jail. She's now in jail.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I wish her well. I'd wish you well. I'd wish a lot of people well. Good luck. Let them prove somebody was guilty. I mean, do you know that
Oh,
she's
so you're
guilty?
saying you hope she doesn't die in jail? Is that what you mean by wish her well?
Her boyfriend died in jail, and people are still trying to...
Her boyfriend, Jeffrey Epstein, who Trump was friends with. Why is he calling him her boyfriend? Why doesn't he call him his name, Jeffrey Epstein? They were friends. They hung out all the time. Your boy Jeffrey, he's dead.
figure out, how did it happen? Was it suicide? Was he killed? And I do wish her well. I'm not looking for anything bad for her.
Is this a threat? Like, is he threatening her with this? I wish you well. Don't say any names or you'll die just like your boyfriend. I wish you well, Ghislaine. Is he literally threatening her with it? I don't understand this remark. He's either an absolute lunatic wishing a child sex trafficker and rapist well, or he's threatening her. Those are the two options.
I'm not looking bad for anybody. And they took that and
I mean,
they
she's
made
a
it
child
such
alleged child sex
a
trafficker.
big deal. But all it is her boyfriend died. He died in jail. Was he killed? Was it suicide? I do. I wish her well.
Let's move to Portland. I'm sure you've seen the disturbing footage of people in fatigues beating the Navy veteran.
No.
Well,
Here you go.
it's there.
The fake news.
It's not fake news.
No.
It's on video.
For
Pepper spraying
59
him.
days, these people were anarchists and agitators and some protesters, but these were anarchists.
Okay.
These people were beating the hell out of the city. They were beating up our federal buildings and our federal courthouse.
Oh no, the buildings. What about the poor buildings?
Police to stop it. You make sure. And the police wouldn't do it. Not the police.
Your own Justice Department and Homeland Security Inspector Generals.
Excuse me.
But your Inspector Generals are
Excuse
investigating
me.
unconstitutional.
You're trying now to blame law enforcement instead of anarchists.
I'm
instead
not.
of Antifa.
I'm not.
It's
Antifa? Dude, Antifa, the boogeyman, the left-wing boogeyman out to steal your babies in the night. Guess what? The FBI have done an investigation, and as you can see, in the last 25 years, 0 deaths attributed to Antifa. 0. There have been 0 killings that Antifa have caused in the last 25 years. And the right-wing extremists have killed 329 people. So if you want to find out which is more dangerous, the left or the right extremists, it's pretty simple. The right is far worse. The Christchurch shooting, the El Paso shooting, the Charlottesville protest. 329 victims in the last 25 years. Antifa members haven't killed any. It's that simple. You're going against. They're using Antifa to prop up as the left, to scare the right. Oh, you better go out and vote for Trump, or Antifa's gonna take over and kill everyone in our country. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'm not for violence. I'm not for looting and rioting. But the fact that peaceful protesters are being shipped in as members of Antifa, it's pretty simple that it's not the truth. Antifa is not causing any violence, or maybe some violence, but no deaths. Only 21 victims have been killed by left-wing extremists, and that's not Antifa. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Left-wing violence has not been a major terrorism threat. A counterterrorism expert is saying this. Multiple studies have been done. 0 deaths linked to Antifa in the last 25 years.
Antifa and anarchists that are causing the problems, not law enforcement. Our law enforcement.
Instead, he sends federal officers in to black bag protesters when specifically the state government does not want that to happen. I don't know if that's fascist. I don't know how much more fascist you can get than federal authoritarian measures sending unmarked agents into cities and black bagging protesters off the streets that are peaceful. They're literally causing no violence. The people they're taking off the streets. It's crazy. It's literally crazy.
If we didn't have people at our courthouse, and they're strong, tough people, and they don't want, they try and be very good, believe me, but if we didn't have people there, you would have your federal courthouse, $600 million building, you would have that thing burned to the ground.
I'm asking you about tactics and about the unmarked vans where they're rounding people up, and I want to.
Let me tell you
Can I
about
just finish my
unmarked.
question?
Well, let me tell you about
Could I just
unmarked.
finish my question, because it relates to this, I promise. This is from Rand Paul. Quote, "We cannot give up liberty for security. Local law enforcement can and should be handling these situations in our cities, but there is no place for federal troops or unidentified federal agents rounding people up at will." What is your response to Senator Paul?
First of all, these are Homeland Security people. They're securing a courthouse.
They're Border Patrol.
They're Homeland Security.
Elite units.
Border. Hopefully they have
Camo,
ice in there. Hopefully
gas
they have
masks.
ice. Now, do you know why they're unmarked?
Why?
Because these terrorists, these Antifa people, these people that are anarchists and agitators, when they see the name on a uniform of a person, a policeman or law enforcement person, they find out where that person lives. And then they go and they scare the hell out of the person's family. And so they do it for that reason. It's just common sense. There's nothing secret about this. And you know it. You see it. What's going on
This
right
is
now.
ridiculous.
We have
This is
Chad
a terrible
Wolf. They
excuse.
have people. He's doing a
Antifa has
fantastic
0
job.
deaths linked to
He's
it,
the acting head.
and
He's doing a
secret military
fantastic
agents
job.
are afraid to
Chad
reveal
Wolf
their
is
identities when they're
a very
blackbagging and
dangerous
doing illegal
looking
things.
People outside of his house. He's going to be just fine. He's tough and he's got people. But if you have the names on all of these uniforms, you'll have these maniacs in front of their houses scaring their family and their wives and or husbands, whatever it may be. I think it's a very good reason not to have your name. Why should you have identification? My name is Bill Smith.
It's
and
the law.
Here's where I live, and I'm a
That's
member
why.
The really
Because
serious
you're,
concern is
No, that's
it is
No,
the
that's a
law
serious
to
concern.
be
serious concern
identified.
is the reports of people being rounded up and not being told why they're being detained. That's what's being investigated
Why?
by Mr. President.
Why
The
they're
inspectors
being
generals.
detained?
The inspectors
You know
generals.
why? You know why they're being detained? Well, yeah.
There's an
I mean,
investigation. Do you support that investigation?
Well, I haven't seen the result yet.
But do you
Let me see
support the
result.
initiative of it?
No, I think that actually
You don't.
So
I
only
think
the
Antifa
result matters.
should be investigated, not the law enforcement. They're investigating.
They shouldn't be investigated.
There's legit hours of footage of law enforcement doing terrible things to peaceful protesters. You can find it in every major city. It's crazy. There's clearly reform needs to happen. And Trump refuses to even admit the fact.
Watching television.
I have.
You been seeing the violence? And
Sure.
Now, if you watch NBC News, like I watch NBC fake news, I'm watching it. Lester Holt, real beauty, and I'm watching this NBC News sham, and you have a mayor named Wheeler, and he's standing out there and he's being accosted by the people. You know that. I mean, it's horrible what they're doing to him. Portland, the mayor of Portland, and he thought he'd go out, he'd be a what they were doing and saying and everything else to him. I happened to watch it on a different station. He had to get out. He had 5 security guards. He got out with his life. Okay.
Mr. President.
If you watch
The mayor of Portland got tear gassed by the federal agents that you sent into the city, Mr. Trump. Literally. There's a video of him getting tear gassed by the unmarked federal agents at a peaceful protest. You gassed a mayor of a city in your own country.
If you watch NBC News, they make him like he's standing there bravely fighting with the people in a positive sense, that everything is wonderful. No, he went out there. He's lucky he got away with his life because they would have killed him. He had 5 guards, but NBC News showed it like he's standing with the people for justice. Look, those people, take a look at what they've done to the courthouse. Take a look at what they've done to the streets. Take a look at the violence.
It's getting worse since they've gone in.
No, actually, it's getting better. We've arrested a lot of people, and we now have a 10-year rule.
Since the federal agents were pulled out of Portland, there has been 0 violence since they've left. Actually 0. Like, everything was solved as soon as the federal agents left the city.
You try and knock down
More
our
businesses
courthouse.
damaged, more violence.
You touch our courthouse, you go to jail for 10 years.
Turning to the rest of the country, we haven't seen protests like this since the 60s. I mean, we're seeing...
These are Democrat
Well, just if I can finish my question.
cities.
If I can finish my question.
And they're doing it for political reasons.
You said you've done so much for African Americans.
I have.
But there are Americans...
justice
I understand.
reform, opportunity.
But let me finish. There are Americans out in the streets asking for change. Mr. President, have you ever met with a Black Lives Matter activist to hear them out, hear their arguments?
No,
Black
he
Lives
definitely has
Matter
not.
started off, to me, very badly because it was
Did you ever meet with one?
pigs in a blanket, burn them like bacon. That was the first time I ever heard of black. That was 3-4 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Pigs, meaning policemen. Pigs is what they're referring to, in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I thought it was, so I got off to a bad start. I got off to a very bad
Would
start.
you meet with
and so did
Would you
Law.
meet with a Black Lives Matter activist?
I would, but I think right now when they
Why haven't you?
when they paint the sign, nobody's asked for a meeting. I've never been.
No one's asked for a meeting. You have people outside the White House.
Americans, I'm doing very well. They had the best employment numbers they've ever had. They had the best job numbers they've ever had. They were making more money than they ever made. We were all set until we got hit by China with the virus. Jonathan, we were becoming a very unified country.
Do you believe
because of success?
I understand.
There's so much. I'll get into this in another video in the future, but there's so much systemic evidence of systemic racism in our country. And it's come to a boiling point because of police brutality towards black people. It's that simple. We've reached a boiling point of terrible, terrible things happening to black people in our country. And so there are protests for it. It's just like there's been protests throughout all of American history when things come to a boiling point. It's crazy. Yeah, you've done the best ever for black people, Donald Trump. Whatever. I mean, I don't know what that means. I don't know exactly what you've done. There's 40 million people unemployed right now. Large percentage of that is black people. So it's not looking too hot right now.
Though, Mr. President, that many police treat black people differently from white people.
Well, I hope not. I hope not. Certainly
Yeah, but there's proof that they do.
You've seen the statistics.
the knee on the neck was a disgrace, okay?
Yeah.
It was a disgrace.
I'm talking about, what does systemic racism mean to you?
I hope the answer to that question is no. Does anybody really answer that question accurately?
Yes, there's lots of it.
What about analysis? What's your cold-hearted
I have
view of it?
seen where there is a difference, and I don't want there to be a difference. I don't like
So
that
do
there would be a
something about
difference.
it.
But with that being said,
Why do you think black men are
police
two
have
and a half
killed
times?
white people
I know, but why do you think black
in
men,
a larger number,
in quantity,
police have killed white
but
people.
why do you think black men are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by police than white men?
That I don't know, but
Why? Why do you
I
think
don't like it.
But you must have thought
Why?
about it.
I
do you
don't
think?
know why, but I don't like it. I do know this.
Does it speak to
that
something
police
systemic?
have killed many white people also.
But
Yes, but
proportionally, what
yeah,
does it speak to?
disproportionately they
It
kill
speaks
black
to
people.
Something, if that's the number, you're telling
is
me
the
a
number.
number. Okay, if that's the number, it speaks to something that to me is unacceptable.
And what do you do about it then?
Well, I think we've already done a lot of
But
things.
you haven't, it
Let
still
me
exists.
just tell you.
No, I understand your achievements. I know what you're going to say. I'm not suggesting you haven't done a
I've
lot
done a thing
economically.
called criminal justice
get it.
reform.
I'm just saying
that
what
your
changes.
friend President Obama couldn't
It's
get
not my
done.
friend.
He
I'm
tried,
asking about that
He tried,
statistic.
but he couldn't get it
I know
done. I got criminal
I get
justice.
it.
reform.
I get
I
it.
got opportunity zones. I took care of the historically black. You know, if you look at what I've done for colleges, for black colleges and universities, I got them funding. Obama never did it. I did more for the black community than anybody, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln or the.
Really? What about Lyndon B. Johnson, who gave them rights and made them no longer second-class citizens? You think you did better than the guy who passed the Civil Rights Act? Really?
You like it or not? People say, "Oh, that's
You really,
interesting."
you believe you did more than Lyndon Johnson, who passed the Civil
I
Rights
think I
Act?
did, yeah. Because
I
got
like this
criminal
reporter.
justice
He's calling
reform
him out.
done. I got prison reform.
Lyndon Johnson.
I've done things. Well.
He passed the Civil Rights
ask,
Act.
How has it worked out? If you take a look at what.
How has it worked out? Oh yeah, the Civil Rights Act giving black people the right to vote hasn't worked out too well. What are you talking about? How has it worked out?
Lyndon Johnson did.
You think the Civil Rights Act was a mistake?
How has it worked out? Because frankly, it took a long time. But for African Americans,
But you
under
think that was a
my
mistake?
administration, Jonathan, under my administration, African Americans were doing better than they had ever done in the history of this country. So I did a lot. Job numbers, all of the money. They had money. They were getting great. Their percentage was up. Their housing ownership was up. They did better than they've ever done
I just don't
until
know
we
how
got
you
hit. And now, you know what we're doing? I'm building it up again. We're going to have it. Next year will be a great year, unless it's screwed up by somebody.
You're not going to
that
be in
doesn't know what
office,
he's doing,
though.
Which could happen, but I don't think it will.
John Lewis is lying in state in the U.S. Capitol. How do you think history will remember John Lewis?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. I don't know John Lewis. He chose not to come to my inauguration.
How petty is Donald Trump? One of the greatest civil rights leaders in black history in the modern era. He's done so much for African Americans. He's dead, and history's going to remember him pretty well. He's done amazing things. And all Trump cares about is he didn't go to his inauguration. Like, oh my God, how petty can you be?
He chose. I never met John Lewis. Actually, I don't believe.
Do you find him impressive?
I can't say one way or the other. I find a lot of people impressive. I find many people not impressive. But no, but I didn't go.
Do you find his story impressive?
He didn't come to my inauguration. He didn't come to my State of the Union speeches. And that's okay. That's his right. And
So why do you care
again,
so much?
Nobody has done more
Right.
for
But back to-
black Americans than I have.
I understand.
He should have come.
Mo-
I think
lots
he
of
made a
people
big
have done
mistake.
more
I
for
think
black
he-
Taking your
Americans.
relationship with him out of it, Do you find his story impressive, what he's done for this country?
He was a person that devoted a lot of energy and a lot of heart to civil rights, but there were many others also.
There's a petition to rename the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama as the John Lewis Bridge. Would you support that idea?
I would have no objection to it if they'd like to do it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Would have no objection to it whatsoever.
Okay. Mr. President, you've been so generous with your time, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great honor.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
So generous with showing us how crazy and deranged you are, and how little you care about issues that affect the American public. Thank you for your time, President. This guy is somehow the President of the United States of America. It's crazy. I'm still shocked by it. Like, how's this guy the leader of the free world? You know, it's crazy. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed that interview as much as I have, because it's pretty ridiculous. And I really do like how that reporter, Jonathan, really pushed back on Trump on a lot of issues. He came prepared, had a lot of statistics to throw out at him that Trump really couldn't refute, besides just lying straight through his teeth about multiple things. But I think it turned out pretty well. I think, if you watch the interview, there's no way he comes across good. I mean, he looks like an idiot, which he always does. So, classic Trump.